In the distant year of 2154, Earth finds itself in a calamitous state, overcrowded and suffocated by irreversible pollution. Unprecedented epidemics plague half of its inhabitants. The cities, once vibrant with life, now crumble into vast slums. Society is starkly divided. On one side, a wealthy upper class. On the other, a miserable lower class, with a social divide that only grows larger. The elite, seeking to escape Earth's desolation, built a distant refuge, Elysium. This space station, which orbits serenely around Earth, is a true technological Eden, free from suffering and disease. There, luxury reigns supreme, and the crowning jewel is the med bay, state-of-the-art medical chambers, that have the power to cure any ailment instantly. On Earth, however, the reality is a dystopian nightmare. Order is maintained by robotic police, relentless and strict, who tolerate no traces of violence. The story unfolds around Max da Costa and his friend Fray Santiago, two dreamers trapped in the chaos of Earth. Since childhood, they have shared the dream of escaping to Elysium. Max, raised in an orphanage by a beloved nun, has always harbored the burning desire to visit this stellar paradise. Years pass, and Max, now an adult with a criminal past, tries to rebuild his life. He works at Armadon Corporation, a giant that manufactures weapons for both the space station and its robotic agents. One day, as Max heads to another day of work, a confrontation with robotic police results in his wrist being broken. In the emergency room, he reunites with Frey, who has become a nurse. They attempt to rekindle their old friendship, but are interrupted by the urgency of the overcrowded hospital, a sad reflection of global overpopulation and the healthcare crisis. Later, Max's absence from work leads to deductions from his salary. John Carlyle, the CEO of Armadon and a resident of Elysium, shows no empathy for his earthly employees, focused solely on profit. Meanwhile, a figure known as Spider stirs up the underworld with a clandestine route to Elysium. His risky plan involves obtaining identification codes that would allow access to the station's resources, although the journey is dangerous and many do not survive the trip. In a desperate act, they launch into space in ships made of scrap metal, heading toward the distant Elysium. When Jessica Delacourt, the ruthless defense secretary of Elysium, detects the approach of the ships, she quickly activates Kruger, her enforcer on Earth, to neutralize them. Without hesitation, Kruger orders the launch of missiles, which reach and destroy 2 of the ships, claiming 46 lives in the process. By a narrow margin, the third ship manages to evade the attacks and docks at Elysium. Before its passengers can escape, Jessica orders them to be captured. The robotic police, along with helicopters, quickly surround and detain the newcomers. A mother, along with her sick daughter, manages to enter a med bay, where the child is miraculously healed thanks to her identification. The mother, relieved to see her daughter revitalized, barely has time to celebrate, as they are soon both imprisoned by the robots. Those who resist are eliminated, and the rest are sent back to Earth. Meanwhile, Max's life spirals into disaster when a technical malfunction traps him in a high-risk zone at work. Ignoring the dangers, his supervisor forces him to go in and fix the problem. As Max enters, the door closes behind him, and he is exposed to a lethal dose of radiation. Dragged out, he is rushed to the medical unit, where a robot informs him that he will suffer catastrophic organ failure within 5 days. John, the CEO, visits Max, but seems more concerned about the material loss than Max's condition. A robot administers some painkillers to Max, only to keep him functional until his inevitable demise. After the chaotic interception of the ships, Patel, the president of Elysium, summons Jessica to reprimand her for her extreme actions. He harshly criticizes her brutal approach and warns that he will not tolerate further casualties, threatening to fire her if the chaos persists. He demands that she immediately cease using Kruger. Back on Earth, an enraged Kruger is forced to surrender his weapons, as he is no longer needed. Betrayed and embittered, he deeply resents Jessica. Simultaneously on Earth, Julio, an associate of Max, finds him stumbling and weakened after the incident. He helps Max with his medication, and following Max's urgent request, seeks out Spider. Max, now more desperate than ever to save his own life, needs a way to use the medbay in Elysium. He and Julio search for Spider, pleading for his help to get to Elysium in exchange for a favor done years ago. Max's journey gains new momentum. Spider, realizing Max's desperation for a life-saving solution, proposes a daring plan. Max must infiltrate the mind of a high-ranking Elysium official to extract access codes and secret information. Spider's goal is clear: to access the officials' bank accounts for a lucrative illegal transfer. In return, he would guarantee Max the long-awaited cure in Elysium. Cornered by the urgency of his condition, Max accepts the proposal without hesitation. The target is none other than John, the CEO who showed more concern for material damage than for the lives of his employees. However, Max's weakened condition is an obstacle Spider quickly overcomes. He equips Max with a third-generation exoskeleton and implants a neural chip in his brain. These modifications grant Max superhuman strength, on par with the robotic police. In a subsequent meeting, John and Jessica, worn down by the president's policies, conspire to regain control of Elysium. Jessica persuades John to reinstate her as president by rebooting Elysium's system core. Before returning to Earth to begin the plan, John took precautions against mental intrusions, implementing a lethal defense mechanism in his brain. When Max and his team intercept John before he can board his flight back to Elysium, they attempt to extract the data, but a confrontation with an android ends with John being mortally wounded and the crucial information being saved at the last moment. With John's death, Jessica is immediately informed about the incident, and fearing for her secret usurpation plan, she sends Kruger to eliminate Max and his team. In the brutal confrontation that follows, all of Max's allies are killed, except for him, who barely escapes. Now with the data in hand, Kruger also discovers Jessica's secret plan, and although his future is uncertain, he begins gathering more information, perhaps for his own benefit. Meanwhile, Max, wounded and exhausted, finds refuge with Frey, who takes him in and treats his injuries. Upon awakening, Max meets Frey's young daughter, who is battling leukemia and whose life hangs by a thread. Frey, distressed, pleads with Max to take the girl to Elysium to save her life. However, aware of the danger his presence represents, Max hesitates, fearing that the pursuit he's under might endanger the lives of the little girl and her mother. After Max leaves, Kruger and his team soon appear at Frey's home, determined to find him. Upon discovering that Max had been treated there, they do not hesitate to kidnap Frey and her daughter, using them as bait to lure Max. Meanwhile, Max heads toward Spider, carrying with him the valuable code he extracted from John's mind. However, upon arrival, he is confronted with the harsh reality that Jessica has blocked all flight routes, leaving them completely stranded on Earth. This prevents Spider from fulfilling his part of the deal, frustrating Max's plan to reach Elysium and save his own life. Amid the growing tension, Spider decides to review the code Max carries in his brain and is astonished to find that it contains instructions that could reboot Elysium's entire system, resetting the station's rules. More importantly, this reprogramming could grant citizenship to all Earth inhabitants, allowing anyone access to the advanced medbay technology. Spider urges Max to be patient and wait until they can access Elysium's system and implement the plan, which would take about 5 days. However, with only a few hours of life left, Max decides to take a more selfish route. He chooses to negotiate the data directly with Jessica in exchange for a chance to use the medbay to heal himself. Aware that Kruger wants him alive, Max decides to surrender when Kruger finally locates him. To his surprise, upon being captured and taken aboard Kruger's ship, Max finds Frey and her daughter, now prisoners. Kruger, realizing the strategic value of the code, informs Jessica about the discovery, leading her to lift the aerial blockade, allowing Kruger's ship to head toward Elysium with Max, Frey, and her daughter aboard. This decision also creates an opening for Spider and his team to follow Max, boarding a ship with the intent of using the code for the good of humanity. As they travel to Elysium, the situation aboard Kruger's ship deteriorates. He begins mistreating Frey, which enrages Max. The confrontation between the two escalates quickly, culminating in a shootout inside the ship. In a desperate move, Max throws a grenade at Kruger, which explodes and disfigures half of his face. The explosion also damages the ship's controls, causing it to crash violently into a luxurious residence in Elysium. With chaos unfolding, Jessica orders all survivors of the ship to be brought to her. Frey, desperate to save her daughter, rushes through the wreckage until she finds a medbay in a nearby house. However, her relief is short-lived, as the medbay doesn't work since neither she nor her daughter are citizens of Elysium. Eventually, all are captured by Jessica's guards and taken into her presence. Kruger, severely injured, is placed in a medbay to restore his face, while Max is brutally strapped to a machine that will extract the data from his brain, a process that will inevitably kill him. Jessica, cold and indifferent, orders the procedure to continue, stating that Max's life holds no significance to her. Shortly after Jessica leaves, Kruger's men remove Frey and her daughter from the room, leaving Max trapped and at the mercy of fate. As the doctors are about to extract Max's data, he manages to break free from the machine in a last desperate effort. Meanwhile, Jessica reprimands Kruger for the ship's disaster and the risk posed to Elysium's citizens, but her fury is not well received. Irritated, Kruger stabs her in the neck, deciding that he will now rewrite the code himself to become the new president of Elysium. His men begin hunting down the station's politicians while Kruger heads off to rewrite the system. Spider and his team land in Elysium and track Max through the facility. While searching for Frey, Max sees Spider on a screen and contacts him, insisting that he proceed with the plan to make all humans citizens of Elysium, which will grant everyone access to the med bays, thereby eliminating diseases on Earth. Max manages to rescue Frey and her daughter and meets up with Spider. He sends Frey to the nearest medical facility and asks her to wait until everyone is recoded as citizens, which will allow her daughter to be cured. Max and Spider then head toward the mainframe but are intercepted by Kruger, resulting in a fierce battle. Kruger initially overpowers Max, but the tide turns when Max disables Kruger's neural chip, shutting him down and defeating him. With Kruger out of the way, Max and Spider reach the mainframe and prepare to extract the data from Max's brain. However, they discover that the code programmed by John Carlyle contains a deadly trap. Anyone who tries to extract the data will die in the process. Aware of his fate, Max decides to sacrifice himself to save humanity. In his final moments, Max connects with Frey, recalling the promise he made to her when they were children. He looks at Earth, and in a touching farewell, compares the planet to the medallion given to him by the nun who raised him, symbolizing his journey of sacrifice and hope. Max then presses the button to reboot Elysium's system, sacrificing his life. The system recodes all humans as citizens, and Frey's daughter is immediately healed. Elysium ships, equipped with medbays, are sent to Earth, bringing healing and relief to the sick and needy, fulfilling Max's legacy and transforming the future of humanity. And so, the film ends.